Nhầm á. Nhầm á. Nhầm á.
What up? Let's do this. On this day, in the unholy church of Nirvana, I would like to invite you to turn in your apocryphal text, Trouble Boys, the True Story of the Replacements, turn to the epilogue, page 404, a reading for the congregation. While Tommy labored over his album and Westerberg tended to his garden, Nirvana had conquered the world. The Seattle band, led by singer-songwriter Kurt Cobain, had released its major label debut for Geffen in the fall of 1991, just a few months after the Replacements called it quits. The Mats' biggest album had sold 300,000 copies total. By early 1992, Nevermind was selling 300,000 copies a week. In a blink, Nirvana had minted grunge as a genre. Sorry. In a blink, Nirvana had minted grunge as the genre, launched alt-rock into the commercial mainstream, and effected a sea change in popular music. Pundits would suggest Nirvana had picked up the proverbial torch that the Replacements had fumbled away. Cobain sings and writes about romantic complexities and youthful apathy, which much of the intensity and insight of Paul Westerberg, wrote Robert Hilburn of the Los Angeles Times. Cobain, indeed, could be the Paul Westerberg of the 90s, but Westerberg thought they had little in common. I guess I wore a plaid shirt, and yes, I played real loud, he said, but Nirvana sounds to me like Boston with a hair up its ass. Side note here, this isn't in the book, but you remember how back in the day people always used to try to say Smells Like Teen Spirit sounded like More Than a Feeling? It doesn't. There's other songs it sounds like, but not More Than a Feeling. Cobain and Westerberg would cross paths just once, in late 1992 in San Francisco. Westerberg was in town recording, Cobain was there producing an album for the Melvins, and they were both staying at the Triton Hotel. On one evening, they rode up an elevator together in awkward silence, exited on the same floor, walked to neighboring rooms, then shut their door without acknowledging one another.
Neither one of us, Kurt Cobain and I rode up an elevator together, and neither one of us said a word to each other.
That's amazing. Because I would think he would die to talk to you.
know, we can tell you, once Kurt Cobain and I rode up an elevator together, and neither one of us said a word to each other.
That's amazing, because I would think he would be dying to talk to you.
No, he was dying to be dying, and I was dying to be somewhere else, and we got off on the same floor, and it's like he's in 516 and I'm in 517, and it was like scripted. Both of us put our keys in and fumble with them and go in and slam the door.
Sorry, I'm trying to get the sound stuff right. I'm still not good at this stuff. Okay, now where were we? Days later, Westerberg would dash out a song called World Class Fad. And now it gives some of the lyrics. You wax poetic about things pathetic as long as you look so cute. Don't be sad, you're world class fad. That many, including Cobain, interpreted as a diss. I never respected Kurt Cobain enough to write something about him, said Westerberg. Maybe he felt he was a world-class fad. Ultimately, if indirectly, Westerberg would benefit from the success of Nirvana when he was asked to contribute to the soundtrack of director Cameron Crowe's Singles, a grunge-centric rom-com set in Seattle. Great movie. Go watch Singles. It's fantastic. Also notice here what book our homegirl happens to be reading right there. I don't know if you can tell. No, I'm not trying to zoom up her skirt. I'm trying to zoom up at the book. Anyway, the book she's reading is The Fountainhead, which is one of my favorite books. It's on that bookshelf back there. And it changed my life. It'll change your life too. All right, back to Singles. Westerberg had been in Warner Brothers president's Lenny Waronker's office playing him some new demos, including a new song called Dyslexic Heart. It's a good song. Waronker thought the tune had potential for Crow's, Warner's distributed movie, and quickly got on the phone with his film people. Lenny told them, "I've got a song here that's hitish." That was his term, hitish, chuckled Westerberg. I think that's Yiddish for shit. With Scott Litt producing, also Scott Litt produced the Unplugged album for Nirvana, and he remixed Penny Royalty and I think All Apologies for their big radio singles, because originally they weren't mixed by him for the album. Side note. With Scott Litt producing, Westerberg cut Dyslexic Heart and Waiting for Somebody, tracks that would anchor the otherwise exclusively Seattle-oriented Singles soundtrack. Crow also asked Westerberg to score the picture. He spent a couple of weeks at a studio in LA screening the film and composing a selection of instrumentals for it. Released in the summer of 1992, Singles was a modest success at the box office, earning $18 million on a budget of roughly half that. But the soundtrack was a monster. Riding the grunge explosion, it sold over 2 million copies. Westerberg, whose Dyslexic Heart became a number 4 hit on the alternative chart, earned his first and only platinum album. I didn't feel one bit of pride over that, he said, noting that there's 10 other bands on the thing.
You had, they made a Nirvana comparison and said that you had, you obviously had to be tortured when Nirvana came out because here's this guy who did what you were doing and got huge from it.
And got dead from it. What do you think? Man, I wish it was me. Yeah, no. Exactly. I mean, what did they get from it that we didn't,
I've only had
We're
3.
doing a special on the Replacements, and I was just wondering if they had at all any influence on you as a songwriter, on the music you make.
I kind of wish they did, because there's so many comparisons to us, I have to be honest, I really didn't like the Replacements when I was into punk rock music. I listened to them, and I liked the sound of it, and I don't know if that, I think my appreciation for R.E.M. and the Beatles and stuff like that had more to do with it, because I really wasn't aware of Soul Asylum and the Replacements and those bands. I knew about them, and I actually saw them live and stuff, and I just didn't get it. I didn't like it that much.
Can we have a...
Well, there you have it, straight from the two guys I'm going to be talking about in this video. So, do you guys like the Replacements? I love the Replacements. That was a band that, Paul Westerberg is one of the greatest songwriters of all time, in my opinion. One of the greatest American songwriters, at least. I was watching Adventureland yesterday, and I had no idea what I was going to do for my Wednesdays We Talk About Nirvana episode this week. And Adventureland, it starts out with the song Bastards of Young by the Replacements. And I don't know, dude. I think if Kurt Cobain had stayed alive, I think him and Paul Westerberg would have ended up really good friends, and they probably would have started joking and wrote a song together called Bastards of Grunge or something, they were both like super nihilistic, you know, and the Replacements had a penchant for destruction too. You know, Nirvana would destroy their instruments on stage, and the Replacements would just destroy their tour bus and their dressing rooms and everyone else's stuff. But they definitely didn't have the same instrument budget that Nirvana had by the time Nirvana got famous for smashing stuff. I mean, I think at the end Nirvana was getting guitars like exclusively to smash them. But yeah, like I said, the Replacements, they would just rip the table out of their own bus and throw it out the window or whatever. They talk about it in this book. You should read this book. It's great. It's great. I told you guys one day I'm going to give you my top 5 rock and roll biographies that aren't about Nirvana, and spoiler alert, this book will definitely be on there somewhere. But yeah, it's kind of crazy because the Replacements, they reunited in like 2014 or whatever for a little while. And I mean, before that, their last show ever was in Chicago in 1991 on July 4th. And it was like 2 months later when Nirvana became like, you know, cultural phenomena. And they both really came out of the same scene. Like, you guys should read this book called Our Band Could Be Your Life. And it talks a lot about various bands, you know, from Fugazi to the Replacements to the Minutemen to Big Black, who's Steve Albini from Big Black, you know, produced In Utero. So like I said, you know, they came from the same scene, that 80s college underground alternative rock DIY thing that was really special. I mean, that was such a special time for music. I don't really know what else to say here. I'm kind of just going off the cuff. The Replacements actually had a song called Nevermind, even though they had a space between the never and the mind on theirs. That was on their album Pleased to Meet Me, I think, from 1987 maybe. And my favorite song on that album is definitely Can't Hardly Wait. Definitely doesn't sound like anything Nirvana ever did, but yeah, man, that song is really special to me. So, you know, there's some people that think Nirvana named Nevermind after the Replacements song, but I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that if it wasn't a Sex Pistols reference, it was Kurt's kind of inside joke with himself about the deal he had just signed with the major labels, right? And then he's just kind of like, haha, never mind, like, watch what I'm about to do. And I mean, he definitely, I mean, we're still talking about the man to this day, so he did some work, you know what I mean? And thankfully he did. But I mean, what else could I say? So they both had controversial Saturday Night Live performances too. When the Replacements were on Saturday Night Live, they got banned for life because Paul Westerberg dropped the F-bomb on live TV. So, and I don't even think they were supposed to be there in the first place. They were brought on as the Replacements for some other band that couldn't make it that week. It might have been REM. I'm not sure if it was REM, but it was some other like alt rock band, and they couldn't make it. And so the Replacements were the Replacements that weekend. And yeah, so Nirvana's controversial side of SNL was more because Chris and Dave kissed each other on live TV at the end credits, you know, when like all the cast is around and everything. So yeah, back in, when was that, January 1992, America was definitely still a much more conservative country at the time. So for two grown-ass men to be making out on live TV, it probably made a lot of people mad. But I mean, I don't really care about all that. But I mean, I'm just saying, you know, as far as controversy, you know, both bands share the commonality in that they, you know, were both rocking the boat while on NBC, right? Hasn't SNL always been on NBC? I don't really know. So I mean, I guess that's pretty much it, dude. What else do I really have to say about Nirvana and the Replacements? Not a whole lot. Go watch the movie Singles. That's your homework this week. And then, you know, if you really want to go for it, do yourself a favor and read Trouble Boys, The True Story of the Replacements. Listen to the Replacements. Kurt Cobain will be mad you're not listening to him, though, but I won't tell him. And, okay, so also just one other quick side note. At the Replacements' last show in Chicago, July 4th, 1991, this band called Material Issue opened up for them. And they're a really good band. Their singer, Jim Ellison, I feel like was a big, like, fashion influence on Britt Daniel from Spoon, even. Kind of has that like slick, preppy, but still rock and roll look, you know, like with a nice little preppy shirt, but like a leather jacket over it, you know, and some nice pants or whatever. I don't know. I don't really think leather jackets are that punk rock, because to get a really nice leather jacket, you got to pay like $500 for it, right? And no punk rocker actually has $500 to spend on a $500 leather jacket. So, but anyway, there's a documentary about Material Issue that just recently came out, and it's on Amazon Prime. You can pay like $10 to buy it. I just watched it yesterday, and it's really good. It's called man, I can't remember what it's called, but if you just type in the Material Issue story, I'm sure it'll pop up. Out of Time, the Material Issue story. So go do yourself a favor and watch that documentary as well. And yeah, dude, I don't know. Until next time, I guess we'll see you later.
Nhầm đó. Nhầm đó. Nhầm đó.